Hello and welcome to Youth Code Jam, the online bits and bytes lessons. Today we're going to be working in a new coding environment called Codemoji. Our focus today is going to be on introducing HTML to students, and what HTML is it's the language that a lot of websites are built in, and it can be a little overwhelming for younger students to start working with. So what Codemoji does is that it puts those elements into emojis. So we're actually going to build with special code blocks that look like the emojis we use on our phone. So it might look a little weird, but I think it'll be fun. This will be a pretty simple activity, so great for all elementary students. Younger students may need some help with their adult or parent. And then middle schoolers, this should be a pretty easy activity for you. So let's go ahead and get started. And what we're going to do is go to, in our browser, we're going to go to, let's start from the start. Let's go to codemoji.com. So that's one word, CODEMOJI.com. And when you're on the home page, you're going to go to play. And then we have three options: code, workshop, and playground. We're going to work in the playground today. And so let's talk a little bit about this interface real quick, since this is the first time we're doing Codemoji here. So we have our index page, and this is where all of our elements will go. So on a website, you put all your elements in one file, and then your styles or your formatting, your text fonts, your colors, all of that will go in the styles page here. We're not going to work with style today. We're going to work with just the index. So we'll have a very plain looking website, but that's okay. It's better to get the basics down first before we start trying to make it look nice. So this is our index page. It looks like another, if you've seen a text document, we have the lines here. And what we already have in place here are the traffic sign emojis at the top and the bottom. So if you guys come over to the right side, you can see this is our emoji panel. And the traffic sign is highlighted. This is our HTML element. So down here will give us a little description. So the HTML tag is what's used to tell the browser that this website is built using HTML, and that's the kind of language or tech that it's looking for, and it will know how to process that. And by it, I mean the browser will know how to process that. Every HTML document is going to start with that opening tag at the top and the closing tag at the bottom. So that's why there's two. Most HTML elements that we'll work with will have an opening and closing tag or emoji, and this is because that tells the browser that this is where, for example, this is where my HTML starts, and this is where it ends. And we'll see that with the few others that we'll go through. Okay, so the next section we're going to do is called the head section. So we won't do a lot with it in Codemoji, we don't need to, but just so you know, the head section, which I'll show by displaying the panda head here. This is kind of they're calling it the brains. So this is the part that's really important to the browser. So this is where you'll tell the browser all kinds of metadata about the site. So you could include the author of the site, the date it was made, the kind of not code language, but you could tell it the language it's displayed in. So it's all this metadata that's really important to the browser. None of it's ever seen by the user. So the other things in here are links to your styles page, or links to any JavaScript you want to use, or jQuery that you want to import on the page. Sometimes linking to other external sites as well to pull into. So all of this is really important for the browser to be able to display your page, but the user never sees it. Except for one thing, which is what we'll get to in a second. But let's go ahead and create our head section by dragging two panda emojis into our space. So I'm going to drag this first one and kind of put it underneath that first traffic sign. So mine landed on line 3. That's okay. It just needs to be close to the top up here, but under that traffic. And then you can see here that I have a warning sign going up. So that means my code is wrong. I could come down here and run the code and now click view. And it's going to show me what that code looks like. So you can see here, here's our opening HTML tag. Here's our closing HTML tag. There's nothing here because we don't have content on the page. And we have the opening head section, but we need to close it, and that's what's creating the error on our page here. So if I click that, it doesn't really tell me. I'm not really sure why, but it doesn't tell us there. But like I said, we're going to add a second panda head, so just kind of click and drag another one under our second, maybe leave a line if possible. So I have 2 lines, that's fine. So now if I run the code and we view the code, you can see we have an opening and closing head. So we have our head section made. We're going to put one thing inside this, and it's pretty common in most websites and you will have seen it. This is the one thing that we normally see as the user from what's in the head. So it's called the title, and this title is the name of the website. So this doesn't appear on the page. So like this could be the headline of the page, right? This code emoji, but the title actually lives up here. So it's displayed on the browser window, and you can put the title of the page in there. So you can see up here, I have the title of this page is the title of the document open, but the title of my page right now is Codemoji, because that's what I'm on. So that's it's not necessarily required, but it's really helpful to have so that if you have a lot of tabs open on your screen, you can see which one is which and easily get back to it without having to open each tab. So it's kind of a user-friendly thing to do. It also helps with SEO or search engine optimization. So the search engines will look for that little feature when they're looking through the internet for that page. So we tend to put important words there. So click this turtle and place it between our 2 pandas. So you can see on this one, it automatically added an opening and closing turtle. If I run the code, you can see the title, opening title, closing title. Some of the emojis will do that, some of them won't. We'll just have to pay attention to which. So you can leave this as this is a title. I'm going to rename it as my favorite animal. So you can just do that. So now if I run the code and view the code, you can still see this isn't showing up anywhere because it's not in the browser, right? This is a preview of the actual page of our code. That's okay though. We don't need to see it. Just know it's there. All right, so that was the starting point for us. We're going to now add our body. So the body section of the page is represented by this hamburger. And this is pretty much where all the content we want to be visible will go. So that includes images, video, text, headlines, audio embeds, anything that we want the user to see or interact with, that's going to go in the body. Sometimes you will also have scripts that get put in the body in their own section. We won't be doing that today, but just for your knowledge. So we're going to click and drag 2 of these hamburgers over, and we're going to put the first one underneath the second panda. And sometimes they don't always land where we want them to. You can use your cursor to add spaces in. And then I'm going to drag the second one, and it needs to go before the second traffic light. I'm going to add some space in there. Okay, so now if I run my code and view the code, you can see my HTML over here. It's looking good. We have opening, 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 close, close for the head, opening for the body, close for the body, close for the HTML. So it's looking pretty good. And we're just going to do, I think, about 3 basic elements for our web page today, so it won't be too intense. So this activity is called My Favorite Animal because we are going to display our favorite animal from a limited selection. So Codemoji has some items preloaded for us, some images preloaded that we can pick from. You cannot actually upload an image from your own computer. That's just how it is. So we're going to pick our favorite animal from about 4 or 5 choices that they have for us. To do that, come to this camera where it says the image tag. So we store images in an image tag. So any kind of picture, any file that ends in JPEG or TIFF or PNG. I think you can use an image tag on a GIF or GIF, whatever you want to call it. I call it a GIF. As well to upload that, because yes, I believe you would put that in an image tag. So that does support the GIFs. And you're going to see something somewhat interesting, or at least something you should be aware of in a second. So click one camera tag over here and put it between our hamburgers. So you can see right here it's flashing. So you're going to take your cursor and click once on the flashing camera. And you can choose any of these emojis. So you won't see the image right away, but you'll see it in a preview in just a second. So I'm going to choose a puppy. So you can choose dog, cat, tiger, monkey, or horse. Actually, I've seen the puppy. Let's do the horse today. So I've chosen my picture. I'm going to run my code, view my code. So this is what my website looks like right now. I have a picture on it of just a horse, and that's all that is visible. If we come over here to look at the code, you can see that the image tag is just, the image is actually stored in something called an attribute, and and what this is using is a relative link. So that picture is stored somewhere within a folder that our page can see, and it's pulling it from there. It's not actually copied and pasted into the site. It's actually being pulled into that web page. You can notice, and you probably did on the page, that we only have one image element. An image element only has one tag. It does not need an opening and closing tag. It did at one point. Older versions of HTML have a closing tag or have a closing backslash on it. This has been changed in more recent versions. So just like with typical programming languages like Java and Python, there's different versions, things get updated. All right, so let's close out of that. And now that we have our image picked, we're going to add a heading. So the heading, in Codemoji, we only have an H1 heading. So a heading is like a headline, right? So it's used to break up sections of text. And H1 is normally used only once on a web page, and it's the main and biggest headline on the page. So normally you put the page name in there or something like that. So if I take you guys to youthcodejam.org and we go to let's go to our Bits and Bytes page. Bits and Bytes is written in an H1 tag. That's where it lives. After that, I use an H2, so it's a little smaller because it's not as important. The most important thing on the page goes in an H1. It typically lives at the top of the page. So HTML is more about formatting and layout. Well, let's do layout and structure instead of formatting. So layout and structure than it is about classic logic like Python or Java uses. So think of it kind of like you're laying out a yearbook page or a newspaper page and you're trying to figure out what's the most important. So we use headings to break up large blocks of text. Same with lists. This is an H3 heading, so it looks a little different. It's a different size. So there's lots of things that go into web's design that maybe seems a little different than coding. So like I said, we're going to add an H1 header, and this is going to be our main header, and for Codemoji, this is the only headline you have or heading you have. So click this ice cream cone and put it underneath our camera. Right, so we show that this is a heading. I'm going to take my cursor and highlight those words. And then just give it, so headings are pretty short. They're normally only a few words. So I'm going to repeat what's in the title. So I'm going to say my favorite animal. Typically, well, not typically, a lot of times the heading 1 will be very similar to the title page, and that helps with SEO or the site being found. So I don't know why it's yelling at us. So now we can see a preview. All right, so I don't have to run the code again. We're just going to take a peek here. So you can see that the horse picture is on top and my heading's underneath. This is because the browser reads these elements in the order it's appear. So let's actually pull up that HTML. So placement of these elements does matter, especially when we don't have CSS involved to change where things are positioned. So what the browser does is it reads from top to bottom of the page and will display things in that order. So if you move your H1 to line 7, the words "my favorite animal" will appear above the picture. You can move these later with CSS. However, it's recommended that you don't do that too much. And when you get further along in web design, you'll know why. But for the most part, just remember that the order you add it to the document is the order it shows in. So image first, headline second. All right. So the last thing we're going to add is a paragraph. So I'm going to switch back to our emojis. And the paragraph is represented by the newspaper. And so it's called a paragraph tag. you don't necessarily have to write a whole 3 to 5 sentence thing in the paragraph. So a paragraph tag, you're allowed to do one sentence, a few words in there, whatever you need to do. It's just typically more of reserved for body copy on a page, which is a newspaper term. I went into newspaper, so body copy would be this kind of text right here. So any kind of just regular text that you would read a lot, this is just regular copy. These are all living in paragraph tags. And what's important about HTML is the syntax and the semantics. So putting something in a paragraph tag means something to the browser, as you'll see in just a second. So let's click on that newspaper and drag it on over, place it underneath the ice cream. And you can write just a couple words or a sentence or two about why this is your favorite animal. So this is my animal because blah, 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 blah. So whatever you want to put there, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to click Run Code again, and now View Code. So I can see my page over here, image, heading 1, and then you can see the paragraph here. It defaults to certain text and styles based on your computer. So this one's defaulting to, it looks like maybe a Times font. So a serif font with the fancy ends as the heading, and then a similar font for the text. But it's a smaller size. You can see this one's larger and bold. This one is a smaller default size, and it's regular weighted text. So you can see that the browser is reading, even though these are both text elements, the browser is treating H1 much differently than it treats a paragraph tag. And you can come over here to the HTML and kind of just take a look at what you did. And this is a web page. You guys have built a web page using emojis, which I think is really fun. And probably got a lot more information than you wanted. I'm sorry. Again, I studied and made websites, so a lot of old information in there. We do have some adventure modes for you. And it's basically just keep playing around with these different tags, see what they do, read on how they work, see what audio you can add. You don't have a super lot of customization options here, but you can play around and see what these tags would look like, both here in Codemoji and then running your code and seeing the HTML version of it. Kind of gets you used to it and everything like that. So that's all we have for you today. If you are wanting to come to our live lessons, which we do every Monday and Wednesday from 4:30 to 5:30 Central Time, that's PM, you can come to our Youth Code Jam Bits and Bytes page that we're on here and click either sign up for the live lessons here or register up here. It's going to take you to our partners page. We are working with Palo Alto to provide these programs virtually. And all you have to do is you can either come in here individually and register for each 2-week session individually, or you can register for all of the 21 Bits and Bytes online series. So you'll automatically get emails I believe you get them around noon or so on Monday and Wednesday with the invite, the Zoom invite, and we do send activity sheets out for the students that enroll in these classes just in case there's tech issues and they can't hear us one day or there's an audio issue. We have a lot of luck with Zoom, but things do happen. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson and continue to play around with Codemoji, and we'll see you next time.